Welcome back to the Octagon Opinion channel. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the White House card and giving my final predictions. I made an early predictions video just the other day, and yeah, this is going to be the final predictions for what I think is going to happen at the White House on Sunday, Monday, depending on where you are. But yeah, we'll kick it off with the first bout of the night, Diego Lopes and Steve Garcia. Now this, I think, is going to be a really interesting fight. Obviously, you'll probably hear that about every fight on the card. It'll be somewhat interesting. This is interesting because Lopez's last fight against Volkanovski wasn't that long ago, and Steve Garcia has had quite a while since his win over David Onama. Now Lopez, obviously, he lost his second title shot against Volkanovski, um, lost by decision, got outdone basically on the feet, but also got outdone on the ground in moments by Volkanovski. And a lot of that is just down to the fact that Volkanovski is just that good. We do have to remember that we are talking about the featherweight GOAT. But I think Lopez he didn't have a bad performance, right? He didn't have a bad performance in that fight. But there was just certain things that I feel like he could have done more. His jab, he used it pretty inconsistently. And so Volkanovski, there was no real consistent threat to Volkanovski's rhythm or Volkanovski's pace. And I think that's something that Lopez, I hope that he's worked on, because there was too much in the Volkanovski fight where Lopez would feign and he would go for a shot but then pull back on it, and especially in a Volkanovski fight where a lot of the times, well, like the fight before, like their first fight, it went to decision. And I think if you're going to have a fight like that with Volkanovski, you have to make sure that your output is there, because Volkanovski will outstrike you. His strikes are often more accurate because he picks his shots really well. And yeah, I think Lopez struggled a bit, especially with a shorter opponent. Lopez looked a bit, he looked like some of his shots he was trying to land and they wouldn't land because the distance was just a bit messed up for him. And obviously, as we know, Volkanovski, he knows what he's doing. And so, yeah, he just outperformed Diego on the night. Um, Now, Steve Garcia, he's coming off of a win, first round knockout over David Onama. Um, Pretty good win, really good left hand, just put him down, and then obviously followed up with a couple of shots. But something that Steve Garcia did really well in that fight is that his jab was always there. It was consistent and it was powerful, and it really disrupted the David Onama's rhythm, and it kind of put David Onama into the positions that Steve wanted him to be in. And then obviously he found the left. But I think Diego Lopez, he's not David Onama, and we do have to remember that. Diego Lopez has now been in his last three fights have all been main events, right? So this guy, he's not afraid, or he's not used to. He knows what it's like to be in these big events. Whereas Steve Garcia, I don't know, man. It could be, maybe the lights are too bright. However, Steve Garcia says here he's 6 foot, so Diego Lopez, he's not going to struggle with a shorter opponent necessarily, so he might be able to find his range a bit better with his kicks, with his jab. And Steve Garcia, he walks forward, even though his head movement, and I will say Steve Garcia's head movement is really good, and he never lets his head stay on that center line, and he's always moving his head about. I still think Diego Lopez is ultimately going to find some crazy, exchange in the pocket. Maybe on the exit, Diego Lopez catches him with something. I think Steve Garcia is kind of limited, and not in a bad way, but I think he is kind of limited to what is going to hurt Diego Lopez. I think he's got his left hand, maybe his jab, but other than that, I think Diego Lopez probably has more tools, and he has more ways of hurting Steve Garcia. I also think Diego Lopez has probably got a better ground game than Steve Garcia, and so Diego Lopez could, if it goes there, if the fight does go to the ground, he could get a submission win as well. However, I am going to go with Diego Lopez win in the second round by TKO KO. I think there's going to be a crazy exchange, and I think on the exit, Diego Lopez is going to hit him with maybe an uppercut or an overhand right, and just put him down. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really good fight to kick off the card. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe Lopez moves up to lightweight. Maybe he announces that he'll move up. I realistically don't think that he's got much else to do at featherweight. I think he's too big for the division already, and he probably needs to, maybe move up to lightweight, make sure he's not cutting too much, and then fight there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. The next fight to take place at the White House, we have Bo Nickel and Kyle Dawkins. Bo Nickel coming off of our third round head kick KO over Rodolfo Vieira, and Kyle Dawkins, who's coming off of a Darce choke submission win over the main man GM3. Now, with this fight, it's a little bit kind of, it's a flip of a coin, to be honest. Both guys could win it. I think Kyle Dawkins, from what I've seen in his fight against Meerschaert, but also some of the other clips I've seen of him, he does look like his striking is like just that wee bit better than Bo Nickel. Also, Bo Nickel showed a lot of his striking in the Rodolfo Vieira fight, and my problem with that fight is that Rodolfo Vieira is not somebody that's hard to look good against. If you know what I mean, like if you don't look good against Rodolfo Vieira, I feel like you probably don't deserve to be ranked at middleweight. And that's another thing, right? We got Diego Lopez, 3 main events, and Bo Nickel and Kyle Dawkins are above him. It does make sense, but it is what it is. Um, but either way, I think Bo Nickel showed that he can strike pretty well in the Rodolfo Vieira fight. I don't know if it will be well enough though. We do have to remember Kyle Dawkins, the way that he got the Darce choke over Meerschaert is that he stepped back, bang, caught him, caught with a really, really good straight, put him down, and instantly went to the ground and got the Darce in. And obviously Meerschaert taps not too long after. Nickel, however, he pieced up Rodolfo Vieira on the feet and obviously finished it in amazing fashion with that head kick. And look, it shocked me. I'll be honest, it really, really shocked me. But other than the head kick, I was really impressed when I was watching that fight back. I think Nickel really improved his striking. Obviously, he wasn't getting put up against a ranked opponent. That one time he doesn't get put up against a ranked opponent and he wins. It's a shocker. But I don't think Bo Nickel really. I think he's got a ceiling at middleweight, and I think this fight is going to really test him. I think Kyle Dawkins can pose problems now. Whether or not Bo Nickel tries to grapple or wrestle, he probably will at some point in the fight. But I'm thinking that obviously on the White House, you don't want to grapple and wrestle. You don't want to do it. Maybe he does because he's American and he wants to show off that all American wrestling. But I would expect these guys are wanting to get highlight reel finishes on the White House lawn, right? Why would you not? Um, but ultimately, I'm going to go with a Kyle Dawkins upset. I think Kyle Dawkins has got Bo Nickel's number on the feet. I think his defense, his striking defense, like the discipline, is a lot better than what I saw from Bo Nickel. I think Bo Nickel overextends a lot of it, on a lot of his strikes, and I think he leaves himself quite open in some exchanges. And in the Rodolfo Vieira fight, if Vieira had just used a check hook or maybe stepped back, bang, or a lead hook or anything, like if Vieira actually used you know a bit more than basic striking, he could have got a lot more out of that fight. Um, but ultimately, Bo Nickel head kicked him, so. Um, but yeah, I'm going to go with a Kyle Dawkins upset. I think I'm going to go by decision. I think he beats him. Yeah, I'm going to go with a decision win for Kyle Dawkins. Um, yeah, that'll be. But it'll be a good fight nonetheless. It'll be a good fight nonetheless. Um, we move on now to Mauricio Rufy and Michael Chandler. Now, obviously, this I think is going to be arguably the most entertaining fight on the card. Michael Chandler never has a boring fight, and I feel like that is, you can say whatever you want about him. the guy's on a was it 3 or 4 fight losing streak now. He hasn't won in time. And listen, is he actually still ranked? Let's just quickly, yeah, he's still ranked. He is still ranked. So he's lost 3 or 4 fights in a row, and he is still ranked in the top 15. That's amazing. That's great stuff. Why is Mercy Rufi fighting down? It is what it is. Um, Probably just to get on the White House card. But I think this fight will be incredibly entertaining. Rufi, we saw in his last fight against Fiziev, we see that his striking, his accuracy, I felt was the most important thing in that fight was his timing and his accuracy. He was stinging Fiziev on the back foot. He was letting Fiziev pressure him up against the cage, and he didn't look nervous. He didn't look worried because he would bap, sting him, right? So Rufi he was using really good strikes for when he was like up against the cage, being pressured, okay? And Fiziev, Fiziev's a really good striker. He's an elite level striker, um, and Rufi obviously put him out, you know, badly. He put him out pretty badly. Um, Obviously, he chased him around a wee bit after stinging him with that right hand. Um, but ultimately, I think, I mean, this is gonna be a really good fight, and I'm gonna say that because Chandler backs up in a straight line, like we saw um, in his fight against Paddy Pimblett. We also saw him, moving backwards a wee bit. He'd go back in a straight line when defending. But also something I saw is that when Chandler would pressure Pimblett up against the fence, he would often he would just telegraph, like he would, like his body, he would go down and he would level change really early. He would level change really early before Paddy was right up against the cage, and that kind of gave Paddy it told him that he was going to go for a takedown or whatever it is. Um, Now, Michael Chandler didn't look terrible against Paddy Pimblett. He didn't look awful in the first couple of rounds. Obviously, he then did get finished, which was pretty bad. Um, but it's Paddy Pimblett, up and comer. I don't think that was a terrible loss. Um, but Rufi, also we saw him against Fiziev, looked really good, looked calm, struck with accuracy. He picked his shots really well, knew what he was doing. And I think if we see Chandler backing up in a straight line like he did against Pimblett, I think we could see Rufi timing like a flying double knee or something like that, maybe a jumping knee. Um, I think we could see some crazy, crazy highlight reel KO like the one he got against Bobby Green, that wheelhouse, that spinning wheelhouse kick. I think we're going to see something crazy on this fight. Either that, or we're going to see Michael Chandler just wrestle him. Hopefully he throws in some ground and pound. When he wrestled against Paddy, he wasn't really mixing in his ground and pound that well. That probably was also because Paddy was doing just enough to kind of keep him in his guard, and so he wasn't kind of allowing him to kind of posture up. Um, but either way, I think this is a Mercy Rufi win. This is a rite of passage at lightweight. You have to beat the boogeyman, Michael Chandler. People forget, man. Michael Chandler. He was, in that Oliveira fight. People forget. The guy's a marauder. But yeah, I think Mercy Rufi. I think he's ultimately going to get this done. I want to say. I want to say. Am I going to go second or third round? This is the only thing. Do you know what? Full on entertainment. I'm going to go third round. I think Rufi's going to get a third round TKO over Michael Chandler. I think we're going to see Chandler just about hang in for the first 2 rounds. He's going to have some good moments of his own, but I think Rufi, the striking and the timing, I think is going to be what ultimately uh, gets it done for him, and then he'll move up. Um, Talking about moving up, we're now at heavyweight with Josh Hockett and Derek Lewis. This fight, I think, is a pretty open and shut kind of case. I think Anybody who's realistically saying that Derek Lewis is going to, win this fight, yeah, what are they smoking, right? What are they smoking, right? These people, they're talking about that one punch power, right? That one punch power that Derek Lewis has that we've seen him use in fights when he's losing, and bang, he catches his opponent with a massive overhand right, um, and he puts them out. And look, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. However, I think what we saw Josh Hockett do against Curtis Blades, we can't just kind of forget that. Like Josh Hockett, as much as you want to hate the guy, he can actually fight decently well. Like it's annoying, it really is annoying. The guy can actually fight. He's got really, really good speed at heavyweight. Obviously lighter man skill. He can move around a lot faster. He's got a lot more pop in his shots. Um, and he can hit combinations really, really quickly. And Derek Lewis, this guy's a one-trick pony. Like, we need to call it out for what it is. He's a one-trick pony. And if the fight is anything like the Acosta fight, where we saw Derek Lewis just lie down like he was sunbathing, just giving up, in that fight, we can't forget that Derek Lewis is he gives up. Like, he gives up. Um, that was the second round that Derek Lewis just lay down and basically just went, he just the guy was done, right? He didn't want to be there. He gave up, and I think Josh Hockett, he's an up and comer. He wants it more, and I think after what we saw against Blades, I genuinely think that we might see a Josh Hockett win, and that could lead to an insane timeline, right? Imagine this, just close your eyes, imagine with me now. Josh Hockett and Alex Pereira fighting for a heavyweight title. Alex Pereira defending his interim heavyweight title against Josh Hockett. Imagine that, right? How ridiculous. But the press conference would go mental. Um, but yeah, so I think it's pretty obvious who I'm going to go with. Derek Lewis, obviously. No. I'm going to go with Josh Hockett by round. I'll go round two, late round two. I think Derek Lewis is going to want to stay in for at least, one round. Um, but I think after, because Josh Hockett really puts pressure and he makes you move and he tires you out. And we see that Derek Lewis, it doesn't take a lot to tire this guy out. Like breathing looks like a manual chore for him. And obviously, in the first round, Derek Lewis is going to be throwing up those jumping switch kicks. He's going to be throwing up the high kicks. But as soon as he does that, he's got nothing left. He's got nothing left in him. So I think we're going to see either a late round two or an early round three stoppage for Josh Hockett, and he will probably fight the winner of Pereira and Gan, which is absolutely fucked. But that's where the heavyweight division is right now. It's insane. Um, but yeah, moving on. We've got Sean O'Malley and Ayman Zahabi, the long lost cousin of Ariel Helwani. Um, that rhymed lovely. Let's just get the names. Yeah, there we go. Right, well, this just isn't gonna. There we go. There we go. So we've got Sean O'Malley, Ayman Zahabi. Ayman Zahabi, obviously, he might threaten a couple of takedowns or two. He might try to do something like that. I think though, after we saw what happened with Sean Strickland and Chimaev, obviously I'm not in any way comparing Ayman Zahabi to Hamzat Chimaev. Okay, don't don't get it twisted. Um, but if we see that kind of thing where Zahabi, obviously he likes to use that Philly shell, when he's striking, but that like I don't know how this guy's on a fucking what's he on like a seven? Is it a seven fight winning streak? 7 fight winning streak. uh, you know, Obviously fair play to him, right? You've got to give him credit, but I just he moves well. That is one thing I will say. He does move really well. His last fight obviously was a win over Chito Vera, decision win. But I just, I don't think he's got the striking defense you know, that I think is going to put anything up against Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley, he obviously is coming off of the win against Song Yadong. Now, you know, I, that was a pretty. It was a good win. It was a good win. However, Song Yudong was absolutely battering Sean O'Malley's legs. He was taking that Sean's movement away, and he was really hurting him on the with the low kicks. You know, not to sound like Joe Rogan, but guys, people forget low kicks hurt, right? And Sean O'Malley was getting beaten up by Song Yudong's leg kicks, and I think if Eamon Zahabi manages to, mix in takedowns with leg kicks, I think we could see Eamon Zahabi getting a decision. We could, because I think that is ultimately O'Malley's weakness is the leg kicks that Yudong was throwing, and that fight wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple of months ago. Um, and so I wonder if O'Malley's, maybe a bit wiser to it. He maybe checks them a bit more. If he doesn't, I think we're going to see Zahabi going to low kicks and then mixing in takedowns as well. But ultimately, from what I saw in Zahabi's fight with Vera and from what I saw with O'Malley's fight with Yudong, I think Sean O'Malley's striking is just it's too elite. It's too good, and I think for this level of opponent, I think we're going to see Sean O'Malley getting a he's going to get a decision win. I think he's going to use the teeps and the front kicks really well. I think he's going to use his striking really well, obviously. And I think that's what is going to win him the fight. I think his takedown defense is good enough that he can stop an Eamon Zahabi. Obviously, Sean O'Malley, he was a bit dodgy with Merab. However, that is Merab. I don't think there's any shame in saying that you got taken down by Merab. Um, just ask Corey Sandhagen. But yeah, I think Sean O'Malley gets his done by decision. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I don't think he's going to TKO him. I think Eamon Zahabi, his movement is good enough that he'll get out of those positions. But I think in terms of output and accuracy and significant strikes, as well as Sean O'Malley's takedown defense, I think we're going to see him beating Eamon Zahabi by decision. Um, and yeah, Ariel Helwani, tough luck, brother. Tough luck, brother. Um, is what it is. We move on though to the co-main event of Alex Pereira and Cyril Gane. Now this fight, it's so important for the mental psyches of so many people, and that's what we have to remember, because the winner of this fight will obviously, um, hold the interim heavyweight title, and hopefully they will then go and fight Tom Aspinall at some point, right? Maybe this year. Um, but Cyril Gane cannot win this fight, okay? Say it with me. Cyril Gane cannot win this fight. I hate this guy with a passion. This guy's had, I think, 4 or 5 title shots in the last 5 years, purely because heavyweight is in such a fucking state. And I just think that that's incredibly, it's mental, right? Now, obviously, Cyril Gane, he deserves a lot of these title shots because he is a very good mixed martial artist, right? There's no doubt about it. He's great. However, we cannot forget the eye pokes. We cannot forget, fence grabs, illegal shots, just all the things that this guy does. Yeah, oh man, I hate him. I hate him. Um, does my fucking head in. However, we're gonna see Pereira at heavyweight. How the hell did he make 185? We need to ask that question. How the hell did he make 185? Um, but no, I think Pereira's gonna. I don't even know if I can say that. I think Pereira's gonna get it done. I want Pereira to get it done. We all need to just pray that Pereira gets this done. Cyril Gane cannot win this fight. If he does, the heavyweight division is ruined. Um, I really want Pereira to win this fight, and so I'm going all in Alex Pereira to get this win. Oh, my head tells me Cyril Gane, but my heart's telling me Alex Pereira. We're going to go with Alex Pereira by second round knockout. I think in the Cyril Gane, his last fight, here we go. His last fight was against Alexander Volkov, decision win. So he didn't finish him. However, there was a lot of oh well, that wasn't Silgan's last fight. His last fight was Tom Aspinall, but I'm not going to count that. But yeah, in the Volkov fight that Silgan had, he obviously likes to keep his lead hand stretched out, mainly kind of to help find his range, to find his shots and that kind of thing. His fingers are right out though. His fingers are right out, and people will try and say, "Oh, that's just how that's just his stance. That's just what he does." That's bullshit. Okay, you can't do that. Um, and I don't know why he has been penalized more for that in more of his fights. Um, However, um, I think there was a few instances in that fight where Volkov caught Gan with some shots on the feet, and Gan, stumbled. He looked wobbled. If Volkov is catching you, then I think it's pretty fair to say that Alex Pereira will catch you as well. And I think Pereira, we know he's got that power. Um, and I think, and I hope to God, that Pereira puts out Ciryl in the second round. Um, it must be done. It must be done. For the sake of humanity, Ciryl cannot win that fight. Um, but yeah, we move on now to the main event of the evening. By this time, Trump, he's probably going to be, 3 hours into a nap. He's not going to be watching. He's going to have Dana just, kind of shuggling his leg, waking him up all the time. Um, but yeah, I think this fight's going to be a lot different than what a lot of people are saying. I'm seeing a lot of people, Topuria in 30 seconds, Topuria by way of aura, this kind of, shit. Um, I think this is going to be a very different fight. I think we're going to see Justin Gaethje spamming the low kicks, and he has to. He absolutely has to. Volkanovski, Holloway, they both found success with low kicks against Topuria. Um, I think we're also going to see Justin Gaethje try and throw that left head kick, the one that Jai Herbert caught Topuria off guard with, and he obviously put Topuria down with it. I think we're going to see Gaethje trying that a couple of times. Um, we're going to see Gaethje just hanging in there up until the third round. I'm going to say this is going to be. Actually, no, we're going to give Gaethje one more because if we think about the Max Holloway fight, Gaethje obviously got all the way to like the last second and then also got put down. Right now, we have to remember that Max Holloway fight, he got put down because they were exchanging in the pocket, right? And also, you don't exchange in the pocket with Max Holloway because he's arguably the best boxer in the UFC, but you don't do that with Topuria either. Um, and I think if this fight is in any way kind of in Topuria's range, or if Topuria is kind of managing the fight his way, we're going to see Justin Gaethje getting done horrendously, right? This guy's going to get put out awfully. I'm going to give him till the fourth round. I think he will actually last till the fourth round. I don't think we're going to, because obviously in Gaethje's fight against Poirier, now I think it was their first fight. It was a long time ago, but Poirier obviously boxer, and Gaethje was spamming the leg kicks so much that Poirier was really, really bothered by them. Now Poirier got the win because he's an amazing boxer, and he just finished Gaethje in the I want to say third round, um, or fourth round maybe, and so that's why I'm giving Gaethje. I'm going to give him till like the one of the latter rounds, right? We saw him against Holloway. He didn't get put out till the later rounds. Um, but I think, I mean, Topuria is obviously an amazing boxer. He's also got probably the most power in the lightweight division. We saw how he did Charles. Rest in peace, my boy. Um, but I don't think he's going to put him away in like 2 rounds. I don't think he will. I think Gaethje, his chin has been cracked a few times. But I think after his performance against Pimlet, I think, oh, man, I don't know. I don't know. If Gaethje, one thing I will say is about his performance against Pimlet that really annoyed me was the amount of times this guy dips his head either to the right or just down the middle. And you're fighting Ilia Topuria, a guy who can uppercut, a guy who can hook. He can throw a body hook coming up, but that ends up hitting Gaethje in the face because he's dipping his head so low. Every time, even with Paddy fainting. Now, one thing I will say, Paddy, there was so many missed opportunities that he had where Gaethje would, Paddy would feint and Gaethje would bite on it like like a fucking shark, right? He would go down, he would bow his head, and Paddy could have, kneed him then and there. Now Paddy did knee him a couple of times, but not enough. And I think against a guy like Topuria, from what I was seeing Justin Gaethje do in the Pimblett fight, he was all over the shop. He was incredibly undisciplined. His striking defense and his guard was absolutely all over the place. The overextensions in some of his shots was ridiculous, and I just think that against a guy like Topuria in the latter rounds, I I, I think we're going to see, similar to the way that Elias Topuria beat up Josh Emmett. I think it's going to be something like that because Josh Emmett and Gaethje kind of have the same kind of thing where they've got that overhand right. Now Justin Gaethje, he goes down and then comes back up and uses the momentum to put power behind his overhand right. Um, but Emmett's got a similar thing where he just goes for that overhand right. But I think we're going to see Topuria just doing the same as what he did against Josh Emmett. He's going to do the same thing here. He's just going to beat up Gaethje, I think, for about 4 rounds. Um, Topuria didn't finish Josh Emmett, but I think he's going to finish Justin Gaethje. I'm going to say I can't decide on whether it will be the third round or the fourth round. Uh, just because it's Topuria and he is the boogeyman, I'm going to give him a third round knockout win over Justin Gaethje. I think we're going to see Gaethje getting done horrifically. I will say Gaethje will use the leg kicks and it will really bother Topuria. And we will see Topuria being hurt in this fight. I don't think he's going to come out unscathed. I think Gaethje is going to put damage on him, but ultimately I don't think that's going to matter. I think Topuria is going to put him out in the third round, nastily, absolutely nastily. Um, but that is the predictions for the Freedom 250 White House card. If you do have your own predictions, leave them down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do all that good shit. Also if you want. But yeah, I think this is going to be a great card all round. I think we're going to see some pretty mental shit. If we're being honest, people were saying about the ring girls, the outfits are looking a bit mental. All this kind of stuff to do with it. And listen, not to get political or anything. It's mental. It is mental. We do have to accept the fact that there has never been a UFC fight at the White House, especially when it's like the fucking. I don't even know what the like the freedom thing. I don't even know what that's about. I don't really care. But I think either way, we're gonna see an amazing card. Um, it's gonna be great. The canvas is gonna be wet. It's gonna be moist. It's gonna be humid. I think guys are gonna be slipping and sliding all around the octagon. Um, I think we're gonna see guys with their footing maybe be a bit off because of how wet the canvas will be. I think yeah, it was Eamon Zahabi. I saw a clip of Eamon Zahabi saying that he was doing a bit of training on the grass in his bare feet to kind of get used to the feeling of a wet canvas. So I think it's going to be a great card. And we're going to see some insane highlight reel knockouts. Yeah, there's going to be highlight reel KOs. There's going to be insane stuff going on this card. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Topuria's going to win? Do you think Gaethje's going to win? Do you think Pereira will win? Or Gan? Let me know down below. Like, subscribe, do all that good shit. And yeah, we'll see you for the reaction to the White House card. Yeah, see you in a bit.